The sound of hooves thundered across the frozen plains of Eastern Europe. In the distance, dark shapes moved like a tide across the horizon. For the peoples of the Rus, this was no ordinary foe, no wandering band of raiders. This was the arrival of the Mongols, warriors who carried with them the terror of Asia's endless steppes. To them, conquest was not a question of if, but when. The year was 1237, and the world of the Eastern Slavs stood on the edge of devastation. Before the Mongols came, the Rus principalities were already divided. The once mighty Kievan Rus, that federation of Slavic lands which had flourished along the Dnieper River, had long since fractured. Brothers warred against brothers, princes squabbled over inheritance and rival cities. Kiev, Vladimir, Novgorod, Ryazan looked not outward to common enemies, but inward to their own feuds. Chroniclers of the time lamented that the land was like a house divided, its walls broken, its gates unbarred. The Orthodox Church, which had brought Christianity to the Slavs 2 centuries earlier, bound the people spiritually, but politically the Rus were vulnerable. It was into this fractured landscape that the Mongols rode. The Mongols were unlike anything the Rus had ever faced. Born of the wide steppes and hardened by harsh winters, they were mounted archers who could unleash death with terrifying precision. Their bows could pierce armor, their cavalry moved with such speed that entire armies seemed powerless to stop them. And behind their strength was discipline, organization, and above all, the vision of their leaders. Genghis Khan, though dead by the time the Rus campaign began, had forged an empire united under a single command. His successors, Urjadeh Khan and his generals, pressed outward in every direction. To the west rode Badu Khan, grandson of Genghis, tasked with bringing Europe itself to its knees. The storm broke first upon Ryazan in the winter of 1237. Badu Khan's envoys demanded submission and tribute, as they had in countless lands before. The princes of Ryazan refused. What followed was swift and merciless. Chronicles record that Ryazan was besieged and destroyed in just 6 days. Not a single eye remained open to weep for the dead, wrote one monk, describing the slaughter. The city's wooden walls were consumed by fire, its churches desecrated, its people put to the sword or dragged into slavery. Those who survived carried the tale to neighboring lands. Yet still, disbelief held the other princes. They could not imagine an enemy so unstoppable. The Mongols advanced deeper. By early 1238, they descended upon Vladimir Suzdal, one of the strongest principalities. Grand Prince Yuri II fled east, raising an army to meet the invaders, but he was too late. The capital city, Vladimir, was stormed and burned. The Cathedral of the Assumption, where generations of princes had been crowned, was set ablaze with the royal family inside. The chronicles speak of the princesses and children perishing in the holy place, their prayers drowned by fire and smoke. Days later, at the Battle of the Sit River, Yuri's army was crushed. His head was taken, a grisly token of Mongol supremacy. City after city fell. Torzhok resisted for 2 weeks before being annihilated. Moscow, still a small town at the time, was razed. The chronicles describe towns reduced to ash and emptiness, fields abandoned, corpses left unburied in the snow. Refugees streamed northward, bringing with them stories of entire communities vanishing overnight. Only Novgorod, deep in the northern forests and marshes, escaped destruction, saved perhaps by its geography and the exhaustion of the Mongol horses. The city paid tribute instead, a grim acknowledgement that survival now depended on submission. The climax came in 1240 when the Mongols turned to Kiev, the symbolic heart of the Rus. Once called the mother of cities, Kiev was the jewel of Eastern Europe, with its golden-domed churches, bustling markets, and scholars who copied holy texts in candle-lit scriptoria. But by then, Kiev was weakened, its authority diminished by rival principalities. When Badu Khan's armies arrived, the defenders resisted fiercely, but they were outmatched. For 3 days the siege raged until the Mongols breached the walls. The destruction was apocalyptic. The grand cathedral of Saint Sophia, a symbol of faith and culture, was looted. Chroniclers claim that only a few hundred people survived from a city of tens of thousands. The city became a desert, one lamented, and its glory passed away like smoke. The aftermath reshaped the Rus' lands. The Mongols established the system known as the yoke. Local princes were permitted to rule, but only as vassals, paying tribute to the Khan and acknowledging his supremacy. A great tribute-collecting administration was set up, with the Khan's emissaries traveling across the land to exact wealth in silver, grain, and slaves. Those who defied the order of the steppe were crushed without mercy. Yet the Mongols did not seek to occupy the land directly. They ruled from afar, establishing their base along the lower Volga in what became known as the Golden Horde. From there, they controlled the destiny of the Rus for over 2 centuries. For the people of the Rus, life changed irrevocably. Cities rebuilt, but under the shadow of tribute. The Orthodox Church, remarkably, was spared the worst. Mongol Khans often exempted churches and monasteries from taxation, understanding the power religion held over the people. In this way, the church grew stronger, becoming the spiritual lifeline of a people under foreign rule. Princes learned to survive by balancing loyalty to the horde with their own ambitions. Some, like Alexander Nevsky of Novgorod, chose accommodation, recognizing that survival lay in submission. His victories over Western invaders, the Swedes at the Neva, the Teutonic Knights at Lake Peipus, were made possible because he secured peace with the Mongols. But the Mongol yoke also carried a hidden legacy. The constant extraction of tribute drained wealth and stifled development. The once flourishing connections between Rus' lands and Byzantium faded, replaced by ties to the steppe. At the same time, the Mongols imposed order on the chaos of feuding princes. Through their authority, they inadvertently laid the groundwork for the rise of a new power, Moscow. The princes of Moscow, skilled at collaborating with the horde, gradually grew in strength, wealth, and influence. In time, they would become the leaders of resistance, turning tribute collectors into kings. The memory of the invasion never left. For generations, Russian chronicles remembered it as a time of fire and sorrow. Songs and prayers spoke of the wrath of God unleashed through the Mongols, a punishment for the sins of disunity. Yet alongside the pain, there remained resilience. The Rus adapted, endured, and ultimately outlasted the horde. By the late 15th century, under Ivan III, Moscow would finally throw off Mongol rule, declaring independence and laying claim to the legacy of both Kiev and Byzantium. But the centuries of Mongol domination left scars, shaping the politics, culture, and identity of Russia itself. Today, the Mongol invasion of the Rus' lands is remembered as a turning point in Eastern European history. It was a moment when civilizations collided, when the steppe thundered against the forests and rivers of the Slavs, and when survival meant adaptation under foreign power. It forged in the Rus a deep memory of resilience and unity born from suffering, a memory that still echoes in Russian identity. As the chroniclers wrote, "Through fire and sorrow we were tested, and though the city fell, the people endured." This story reminds us that history is not only shaped by kings and conquerors, but by the choices of nations, whether to stand divided or endure together. And in the shadows of burned cathedrals and silent cities, a new chapter of Eastern Europe began, one written under the watchful eyes of horsemen from the steppe. If you have enjoyed this journey into the past, Remember that every episode like this takes hours of research and care to bring alive. Supporting historical storytelling ensures that these voices from centuries ago continue to be heard today.